going on, homies? It's your boy StumpD back for another OPTC video, and in today's video, we're taking the new Super Suga Fest Yamato into some Pirate Rumble and showcasing the new and improved INT team. And with the release of Yamato, INT finally has some attacking prowess. So in today's video, we are literally just taking on everything, and we're gonna have a chat about the strengths, the weaknesses, what Yamato actually does, and I'm gonna show off two INT variants that I have been using this morning, and give you guys some substitutes and some other units that are very, very good for this particular team. So the first fight, as you guys are seeing on screen, is against the CPU strength team. So with Kuma's release, there is new missions. So I decided to take on the Kuma event just so we could get a strength team showcased. Not a lot of strength teams are going around. Look, it's still probably the worst class, or color, I should say, in Pirate Rumble. It is still good, but especially if you are versing Dex teams, but for the INT team, it really doesn't struggle too much. So the first comp that you do see uses Whitebeard and Smoker in the front lines, but while we're taking on this CPU fight, I do want to talk about what Yamato actually does. So Yamato's Pirate Rumble special at level 10, which we have her at, 100% chance to halve stats to enemies in a medium range for 20 seconds, 4.5 times her attack to 2 enemies, level 7 attack down to enemies in a large range for 10 seconds. This special is actually busted. It's like Moria, but on like some serious crack. Like it's actually insane what she can actually do. Her Pirate Rumble ability is level 5 attack up to INT allies when damage has been dealt for a maximum of 5 times, level 2 increased attack to INT allies. So every time she deals damage, she gives level 2 attack up to your entire team, or to the INT team. And because this entire team is INT, it means that we all get a lot of attack. So the idea of the INT team was very defense orientated. It had a lot of HP, it had a lot of tankiness, but now with Yamato, we can sort of just expect to get our attack boosted by level 2 up to 5 times. So extra like level 10 attack up as long as she is doing damage. She does a normal attack, strong attack, full power attack. She attacks nearby enemies. She's immune to movement seal and has 30% decreased damage against a Psy enemy. So she takes 30% less damage to Psy. Now, obviously, with Pirate Rumble and Japan being quite balanced, the Psy team is the INT team's worst enemy at the moment anyway. Namely because they have something like One or Law, but we will talk about when we get there. So that was the fight against the strength team. Let's move on to a Dex fight now. Alright, so coming up against a little bit of a Dex team. Now, this particular Dex team isn't exactly like the be-all or end-all. It is still missing like a few like heavy hitters. It does have Rayleigh, Moria, Kizaru, and Queen, which is sort of like a very good core. But it is missing stuff like you could easily slap something like Law on this team. You could easily use something like the new Lucci is very, very good in Pirate Rumble. Or you could easily use something like Super Type Kid. Now, these guys are using Viola Rebecca in the front, which is a little bit of a head scratcher here. But it was sort of the only Dex team that I could find, so I did really just want to include it somewhere. If I do sort of find a better Dex team moving forward, I will look into it. But the Dex team really doesn't stand a chance against the INT team from what I've seen anyway. Dex is only really good when you're going up against Quick, very similar to Strength really only being good up against Dex. While their teams are very good against their respective strong colors, they do really struggle against the big INT and Psy teams. Obviously, Dex is good against Quick, but Strength just gets absolutely destroyed by Quick being its weaker color. But as you can see, we can take out Viola Rebecca very, very easily. And we are sort of looking at his main core now, which is sort of Queen, Rayleigh, and Moria, as well as Kizaru. Now, the Dex team does have quite a lot of defense, and it can replenish its defense quite nicely. And the reason the INT team sort of does a lot of damage against it, or does very, very well, is because of Moria and Yamato being able to halve stats. So it doesn't really matter if you have like 35 defense or 36 defense, because Yamato and Moria can actually just halve those stats. So it really brings you down to like 16. Even though 16 is still good, it is still a massive decrease from what the original stat was. And the 50% reduction of base stats, besides HP obviously, it's just such an OP ability. So in this particular fight, I was using the Whitebeard and Smoker comp. This particular comp actually relies on a lot of attack in the early stages and then builds up its defense, as well as building up its attack as well. This particular INT team has a lot of attacking prowess, as well as still having a good chunky 19 or 15 HP, and very, very good defense replenishment. So that was against the the Dex team. Works very, very nicely. Let's move on to another variation now. Alright, so I found a older INT team, and it's not a very good INT team to say the least. But I did just want to showcase this particular INT team, just to talk about a couple of replacements that you actually can put on the team that we are utilizing here. Now, this particular comp is using the Marco and Jozu combination. without using Whitebeard, and then having Smoker on the bench. Smoker's a great bench unit, and Jozu just gives you a lot of tankiness with his extra defense and HP, as well as the speed. The amount of speed really helps Yamato build up that 10 attack as well. And then Marco's really good at also healing, as well as doing a lot of like nuking damage. The big core when it comes to the new and improved in team is really Yamato, Moria, and Reiju. If you have those three, the other sort of units are just like very like interchangeable. You have units like Verse Whitebeard, very good. You have stuff like Komurasaki. You can even slide something in like V2 Dofi because the team is very driven based. You have characters like Katakuri, who's great at nerfing the Sai teams. You have units like Blackbeard, who can put out a lot of damage, even though he's really not that used anymore. But the INT team just has a lot of different options, and it's really nice. Very similar to the Sai team, actually, and that's the big upside to the Sai and the INT teams, is they just have a lot of options. And for players that don't really have all these like high-end legends or these like newer release legends, you can sort of makeshift your own variation of the team, as there are a lot of like I said, there's just like a lot of really good options. You've also got stuff like the Enel from that you see on my bench here. He's another really good unit. You've also got Hody, the Pyre Rumble free-to-play unit. He's another really good option. And with that, you can do a lot with the INT team, and it's really nice to see. So that's really why I wanted to include this other INT team that we were fighting today, just so we could just sort of talk about that. So if you have some of those other options and you are missing like something like Marco or the PvP Jozu, you could easily just slide them in somewhere. But that was against the old INT. Let's move on to another comp now. Alright, so moving on to Quick now, and I do have a lot of Quick fights, so just prepare yourselves, because Quick has a lot of options very similar to Sai and INT. And out of the three primary colors, I do think that Quick is still the best, like, by a long shot. Obviously, it just absolutely destroys strength. Dex has a lot of counters to it, but they are very Pirate Rumble exclusive characters. The upside to Quick is it has just a variety of different characters that you guys can actually use. Now, trying to find the OP Quick team was a little bit hard. I couldn't really find the combination of Akainu, Luffy, Kaido, Shiryu, and who's the other one? Magellan. I couldn't actually find that team comp anywhere, so I just want to include a bunch of different variations against the Quick team. Now, I do have the final fight that we showcased the Quick team is probably the strongest INT variation that I do think you can use against the Quick team, because it just sort of puts out so much damage. They just pop off their specials. They have a lot of defense down removal, which the INT team sort of relies on having that defense, and it can just sort of wipe your team very quickly. But this team that you see here utilizes a lot of driven and powerhouse based units. They did have Stuffy in the front line, as well as Kuzan, who can give them some cooldowns and stuff like that as well. And the team that I'm actually using is the Marco and Jozu comp. And the reason I'm using the Marco Jozu comp is we start at very high defense, and it's actually quite essential to have a lot of defense when it comes to fighting the Quick team, namely because they can actually lower that defense. And if you are at 0 defense, like, they're just going to absolutely mop the floor with you. It's just going to be really hard to recover, and it's just going to be a really bad time. But as you can see, even though we actually win this fight, as you can see, like, the Quick team can still do a lot of damage. Unfortunately for them, we did manage to do a lot of damage in the early stages. We did just get unlucky getting hit by that Whitebeard special, so we did lose a couple of characters. But just with the strength of our bench, with Enel coming in with his amazing passive, Smokey coming in with all of his damage that he can do, as well as his mischance, it just helps us out quite a bit. And it's very easy to tie up the back end of a fight. So that was the first Quick fight. Let's move on to another Quick fight now. Alright, so moving on to another Quick fight now. This particular team has Luffy in the lineup. Now, Luffy of the Onigashima trio, for you global players, is probably the best in Pirate Rumble out of the three. Like, Kid's really good. Like, he's probably the best on paper, but the strength team's just lacking compared to the Quick team. So, Luffy and his haste ability, if you guys are looking for PvP characters, Luffy's probably the one you want to be summoning for if you're very heavy into PvP. In my opinion, he's probably the second most valuable out of the three overall. But in PvP, he's very good. This team also has Kaido and Akainu, a very good core for their quick front lines, as well as using Smoker, which is a bit of a head scratcher. Smoker's just not a great PvP unit, unfortunately. He can do paralysis and stuff, but like he's just pretty dookie. But then they also have Kuzan. Now, V3 Kuzan is a really good option, as he can give a lot of speed. He can special bind us as well, which the INT team does struggle with particular units. But with the team comp that I'm using against this particular team, we are using this Smoker as well as Whitebeard comp. Now, Whitebeard is great for tanking. Really good. He can give you a lot of defense. In the back end of the fight, he starts doing a lot of damage as well. Like, a lot of damage. But the idea of this particular team comp with Smoker and Whitebeard in the front line, as well as our core Yamato, Reiju, and Moria, we are building up that defense. As you can see, we built up to around like 10 to 11 defense, and that really helps Yamato stay alive. This team has a lot of attack as well, like a lot of attack, and can actually output some ridiculous numbers when Yamato puts off that. I think it's like a 4.5 times her attack or something stupid. Just absolutely wild. Once you get below the 50 second mark, Whitebeard actually starts doing a lot more than just his defense up and his HP cut. He can actually start outputting a lot of damage, and with the damage over time from Reiju, it can help out a lot. Yeah, good job there, Smoker. Good job there, brother. You did good, Smoker. But that was the second fight against Quick. I think I got maybe 1 or 2 more fights against Quick. I can't really remember. I definitely have 1 more, so let's move on to that. Alright, so the final fight against Quick actually utilizes Whitebeard in the front with Jozu. So the 2 comps that I have been showcasing mainly for this particular video has been Jozu and Marco together. So Jozu for good tanking, Marco for good damage output, and then the core of Yamato, Moria, and Reiju. And then the second comp has been Whitebeard and Smoker in the front lines, and then still keeping that same core as well. The big difference between the 2 is one is very attack orientated, one is very tanky, but the attack orientated gets very tanky, where the tanky one gets very attack orientated. So they kind of parallel each other. But when you are facing the Quick team, and I do really want to try and come up against the big dog Quick team at some point, I am going to be trying to rank quite high in Rumble for this particular championship, so hopefully I will find one eventually. But this particular front line was the best Quick team that I could find in terms of its synergy. They have Magellan, they have Kaido, they have Queen. This is actually my global Rumble team, Quick Rumble team. The only way to make this team better is literally put Luffy in the front lines over Queen, and then just like change your bench a little bit. But as you can see, with the extra tanking that Whitebeard can provide us, as well as the HP cut, we can actually get upwards of a lot of attack, as well as be very, very chunky defense. At one point there, we had 21 defense, which helps out drastically when we are taking the shots from stuff like Akainu, when we are taking those shots from stuff like Kaido, especially when Smoker comes in as well and starts giving that mischance. With some bad RNG, we can actually start taking a lot of damage. Queen can actually put out quite a bit as well, and obviously when PvP Whitebeard comes into the fray, as well as Magellan lowering defense, the Quick team just has so much going for it that having that extra HP, having that extra defense is just so damn clutch, so you can actually tank some of those bigger shots. Even if you do get special bonded on stuff like your Yamato and stuff, don't stress, because normally Yamato pops off fairly early. We do take that Kaido shot and we lose Jozu. But the beautiful thing about this particular team, or the team comp with Jozu, is Enel comes in for Jozu every single time. And because we only have one other unit on our bench, we do get that amazing passive from Enel. It's really, really clutch as well. When he does come in, he gives you that defense, he gives you the attack, he pops off his special for Rainbow defense up. He's basically just that's a direct replacement for Jozu. Not saying that Jozu doesn't have a very good like placeholder with his speed up and stuff like that as well, but the replacement of Enel just sliding into where Jozu was is just so damn nice that even when we come up like against this big dog Quick team that has 8 units, like very, very powerful bench, we just plot along. We take some damage here and there, but we're always in good stead. Reiju just sits in the back so comfortably and has no issues whatsoever with dealing with the damage output. You could easily put Whitebeard in the middle if you wanted to. Whitebeard's really, really good at tanking if you want to like hang on to Jozu for a little bit longer. But as you guys can see, like that might be an option when you are versing the Luffy comp. But as you guys can see there, it does work very, very nicely. So that was against the Quick variation. Let's move on to some classes now, some class teams. Alright, so the first class that we're taking on is the Driven team. Now, with the release of Yamato, as well as Ulti Page 1, the Driven team has just sort of crept up and up and up, and has become a bit of a force to deal with. Not kind of like what the Slashes were like, but I am working on a Driven team at the moment. I've just sort of resorted to, I've used all my scrolls, basically. Like, I've leveled up so many characters over the last 2 days when it comes to Fire Rumble that I've literally got 0 scrolls in my inventory. Like, it's actually wild. So the Driven team is not the greatest Driven team going around. It is still quite quick centric. Ulti Page 1 is a great option for this team. Obviously Yamato is a really, really good option. Like Dofi's just still that great core, as well as the Fire Tank Pirates being so ridiculously overpowered with their amazing passive. So the Driven team is getting a lot better in Rumble. It's always been quite strong. It was quite centric around like INT, and then it was quite centric around the Quick. sort of characters, as well as being like a mono quick driven or a mono int driven. You always had those real options, but now there's a lot of really good characters that just directly buff driven. Now this guy, he was using Enel in the front lines when he had an extra unit on the bench. I think if he just sort of removed Jozu, this team would function a lot better. But with Pirate Rumble units like Smoker being driven, you have a PP Enel being driven, you can make the most out of some, like, as well as like Moria being driven. Like you can do some real funky things with like the int color and driven, but you can also slide some units onto the team like Ulti Page 1 as well as the Fire Tank Pirates, because they are just very good units to be utilizing on your team as well. So I do want to sort of have a fiddle around with driven, and hopefully I'll get some gameplay out for you guys. But I did want to include this as it is one of the better defensive teams going around at the moment. So if you do see the driven team or the driven centric team, just be very mindful that they can do a lot of damage. They can outlast that 100-second mark very easily, and they can do some really cool things. So just be on guard when you do see them, because they do have stuff like Super Type Kaido, they do have stuff like Versa Kainu. As I mentioned, they do have Moria. They have a lot going for them when it comes to Pirate Rumble, and they are going to be a very good team moving forward if they do keep giving driven all of the support. Hopefully Bandai sort of chills on the driven after we see Yamato 6+. I think it might change. We might see her become a free spirit unit. I imagine she'll probably stay driven, but she may stay striker, so who knows. But Yamato's going to clean up this fight for us. 12,000 damage. Absolutely absurd. And we're going to move on to another class fight now. Alright, so moving on to a rainbow team now. I did manage to find a Sabo Ace combination utilizing stuff like Otama, Shanks Crew, Jack. Very good defensive setup when it comes to a rainbow team. So I did actually want to include it. It's a lot of fun taking on the rainbow team, and I've always been a big fan of the rainbow team with dual units and stuff like that, namely because Shanks Crew has been so predominant on it. Besides when Slashers sort of just took over the meta. But with a Sabo, another character that Global can be looking forward to, they are another amazing unit when it comes to Rumble. With stuff like Rayleigh, Jack, and Shanks Crew all being rainbow characters, as well as a Sabo, all being very good defensive options as well, and then sliding something like Otama in to help out fighters and free spirits with their cooldowns. Otama can give a lot of healing, which is great to sort of drag out those fights. You get a lot of guard when it comes to Rayleigh, as well as defense up with his passive. Jack can give you defense replenishment. Shanks can give you defense replenishment. A Sabo can give you defense replenishment. But as I was saying when we were fighting the Dex team, the beautiful thing about Yamato as well as Moria, as we have that really ridiculously OP ability to halve stats. They both have a 100% chance to halve stats. Yamato is a little bit more RNG reliant, as you do need all the enemies to sort of group together like you kind of just saw there. But as long as you can take out Otama or the healer on the rainbow team, you're pretty much in good stead after that. Because as you can see, we've got very lucky with that RNG there. And we've managed to halve every single one of these characters' stats, which is just ridiculous when it comes to... If you can halve everyone's stats and then have stuff like Marco pop off, and then have stuff like PvP Smoker pop off, as well as Yamato pop off with their specials, you can just output some ridiculous numbers and just say, well, I don't care if you have 20 defense. Really, it's only 10 defense. 10 defense becomes 5 defense, and you guys get the picture. So with the end of the overtime damage that Rager can provide too, it just helps with like chipping away, as well as the fixed damage that Jozu and Moria can provide as well. It really just helps out when we are taking on these big defensive teams. And as you can see, even though Rayleigh does get his guard off, he does get his passive off, once Yamato comes in with that 4.5 times her attack, it's just absolutely absurd. What they've done with Yamato in PvP is it's very similar to what they did with Odin, but in my opinion, it's to a much lesser extent because she doesn't have the help of something like Roger. But that was the Rainbow team. It was a lot of fun versing the Rainbow team. Shout out to that guy whoever put it together. Big fan of your team, brother, and keep up the good work. But let's move on to the final class team now, and then I have the final color to talk about in today's video. Alright, so the final class team of the video is the Slasher team. You guys know me, I always like to take on a Slasher team when it comes to my PvP videos. Mainly because, like, Slashers... Like, if you're a global player, you know what I'm talking about. Like, Slashers dominated the meta for so damn long, and it was just absolutely absurd, like, how powerful the Slashers were. So I always like to use them as a bit of a baseline. But with today's video, talking about the INT team, there is one particular character that just absolutely cucks the INT team. And that man is Wano Law. Wano Law has aged so damn beautifully and so damn gracefully that every time a driven unit, every time a powerhouse unit comes out, which they are very, very predominant at the moment, Wano Law just gets better and better, especially in Rumble. Now, over here on the Slasher team, we do sort of have a little bit more speed, we have a little bit more damage output, we have a little bit more tankiness, and we actually can get the job done. But when it comes to Wano Law on the Psy team, it is the INT team's biggest downfall. And very similar to how Strength struggles against Quick, and Quick struggles against Dex, and Dex struggles against Strength. Unfortunately, INT, while they are parallel, INT does struggle against Psy, but it can take Psy on. And we will talk about that in the final fight of the video. But when it comes to Wano Law is just a king of just destroying this particular team, as everyone on our team is powerhouse, everyone on our team has driven in their comp, and he reduces our cooldown by level 6, and then increases their cooldown by level 6. So there's about a level 12 difference in the cooldown. So it's absolutely absurd what Law can actually do. And when you partner him up with something like Enel, Rebecca Toy Soldier, Roger, well, obviously Roger's on this team, but mainly the Straw Hat crew, it is very, very hard to get around that particular team when you are already at a disadvantage. So I did want to showcase us taking on Wano Law somewhere, but every time I tried to verse him in the side team, it was just absolute GG. Like, I do have an idea, or shout out to my boy Rumble Scratch. By the way, shout out to Rumble Scratch for helping me to put this particular team together. This team that you do see, this team comp, I was talking to him about. We were spitting ideas of each other. Make sure to go follow the man. The guy's almost at 1,000 subs. Please get the man to 1,000 subs. He does some really good work. Join his Discord if you guys like to talk about Rumble as well. Join my Discord if you like to talk about Rumble as well. We have some really cool people over there as well. But make sure to check him out, because he'll answer all your questions about Rumble, and the man's an absolute god. So shout out to him. And that was against Wano Law Slashers. Let's move on to the final fight of the video now, and let's wrap it up. Alright, so the final team comp is against the Psy variation. So, against the Psy variation, INT has two very, very good units that do help out quite a lot. And those two INT units are Katakuri and Konus. Now, unfortunately for me, my Katakuri is only at, like, level 6 special. And my Konus is, like, I did get her to level 5 passive purely for this video. But I think her special is only, like, level 3 or 4 or something like that, and that's the big reason why I've actually put her in the middle slot. Ideally, you probably want to put like Reiju. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section if you guys have been trying against the Psy team, so that way you can actually get Konus to pop off. But Konus's special for me was just way too low, and the impact it's going to have was just absolutely nothing. So I really just wanted to get her passive in early, so that way we can actually get some nerfing against the Psy team. Now, as you see on this particular team, there is no Wano Law. Now, Wano Law, as I mentioned in the Slasher comp, he is the biggest downfall for this particular team, and especially if you partner him up with something like the Straw Hat crew, who this guy does have in the back, and I am just waiting for that character to come in. Like, that character is so underrated. Straw Hat crew in Rumble, in regular play, they're so damn good. But once they do come in, the fight does get a little bit harder. Versus Shanks gets a lot better as the longer the fight goes, and Psy, very similar to INT as well as Quick, has a lot of very good options. This guy's using the German 66. I would have Straw Hat crew in the front lines over German 66 if it was me. So if you guys are watching this video and you are putting together a Psy team and you have Straw Hats and you're thinking about Germa, put Straw Hats in the front. They're just a way better option. But in saying that too, the German 66, especially with that 6+, is very, very good. Now, we did lose Konus, but it's not the end of the world, because we do have Enel coming in. Now, Enel's really good when he does come in, even though he just did get absolutely gollywalked. But his passive is so damn strong, provided you only have 6 units. But we do end up losing him anyway. So look, it is what it is. But we then get Smoker coming in with his mischance. And at this particular point, we've sort of just done enough to sort of nerf them out. So that way we can actually get our Moria coming into half stats even more. As well as Yamato with her big damage output. Now, this particular fight isn't exactly the greatest representation. Namely because I just don't have the 2 units that I am showcasing at their max potential. And I don't think I'm going to do so. Because if you are using an INT team, especially with Yamato, especially with your Driven and your Powerhouses, I would highly recommend just avoiding the Psy team. It is the team that it struggles against, as well as like that Wano Law conversation that we were just having. But the beautiful thing is we just managed to have Yamato survive. Yamato managed to clean up the scratch there, so we did get a little bit lucky with some good RNG, but there you guys go. That's going to wrap up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you go in there and belt the like button for me if you're new to the channel too. Hit that big red subscribe button. But guys, wherever you are in this beautiful world, please remember to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, homies, I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later!